Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Soldiers of Cinema podcast, episode 60. I'm Cullen McFater, and I am joined, as always, by Clark Coffey. And today we are discussing Clark's choice, the 1999 film Being John Malkovich. How are you doing today?
I'm doing all right, man. How are you?
I'm good. I am good. But what is being? What does it mean if I say I'm good?
Of course, sadly, our audience won't get to hear your first take on that intro.
Oh God, yeah. Or perhaps,
maybe who knows? Maybe I'll edit it in when you were a little rusty and you were trying to find your words and you were like, "Me is Cullen," and then I thought, well, how appropriate. Yeah. I mean, what are you really, Cullen McFater? Yes, are you being Cullen today? Is someone controlling you? Has someone entered a portal in some office building somewhere on the 7th and a half floor?
It's just like, someone's trying to speak through me now. I didn't say that. Yeah.
Excellent. I can't wait then. This is going to be exciting. But yeah. Mm-hmm. So first of all, episode 60. Woohoo! That's like amazing. Yeah, and I'm always surprised at how many of these we've done. It just like blows my mind, and it's still fun. But yeah, I picked Being John Malkovich, and as we usually do, let's kind of dive into our personal experiences with the film. You said you'd seen it before. Mm-hmm. Obviously, we've both watched it again recently so that we can discuss it now, but I'm kind of curious to hear a little bit about when you first saw it and kind of what that experience was like, and then what it was like now to watch the film anew, and what kind of just your like initial broad stroke impressions were of the film.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think I first saw it when I was 18 or 19. So 5 or so years ago. And I remember, I watched it with a friend who really, really liked it. And so I think that always kind of
that helps
bring you into something, right?
Yeah.
And I think it was me, him, my girlfriend at the time, and then somebody else. It was like a group of us.
Okay.
And I think he was the only one that actually seen it. I'd heard of it for ages.
And you watched it on like DVD or okay?
And it was just probably a DVD or a Blu-ray or something.
Okay.
I remember, we were none of us had seen it except for the one friend, but I was familiar with it. Like I knew
of it. You knew of it.
I knew Spike Jonze. I knew Charlie Kaufman. I'd seen other Charlie Kaufman movies actually, and other Spike Jonze movies. So I wasn't unfamiliar with the movie at all. I just had never gotten around to seeing it.
Right.
And I think I remember, it's both, tonally predictable if you'd seen their other work, but also at the same time, there's a certain aspect to their work that makes it kind of impossible to predict. Like you kind of, you can guess if you're hearing that Charlie Kaufman and Spike Jonze are making a movie together. It's like, okay, I can probably understand what the tone is going to be like scene to scene.
Right. Now,
but
of course,
at the same time, because of their way of making movies, there's also no way to predict what those scenes will actually consist of. Like there's some really genuinely funny bits in this movie that are just so nonsensical, like the speech impediment thing when she's like, I have no idea. And just how flatly she plays that, the receptionist or whatever he calls her, his exceptional, organizer of something or
And then how Orson Bean
like, so is such flatly oh man, he's great. Yeah,
he's great in this film. It's one of my favorite performances. So, well, it's interesting, as you described this. I want to delve into it a little bit more, but because you kind of have had an opposite first experience than me, because when I first saw this film, I actually saw it in the theater. Mm-hmm. On release. And so this is Spike, obviously Spike had done skateboard videos. He had done music videos. Now I hadn't seen any of his skateboard work, but I had seen his music videos, and actually he was a name, like he was a known entity in the music video world, unlike most music videos, because he had done, pretty significant work with like the Beastie Boys, who I was a big fan of. So I was kind of aware of him. And he was maybe one of the more prominent music video directors. And he was also like, he was young, and he was like hipper, and he was kind of like traveled around in the skateboard world, and so
really big choices visually too. Like his music videos, you can see these like really kind of wild artistic choices.
Totally, and kind of rebellious in the way that he directed and what he did, and
so Jackass.
which I really wasn't familiar with at the time, and I might have even actually kind of been, that's stupid. I'm not interested in that, but we could talk about that later. But but yeah, it was from his music videos, and then I didn't have any idea who Charlie Kaufman was at this time. This was also his first film, so for me going into the film, I mean, I remember watching the advertisements, right? I remember seeing like trailers and promos for it. And I was like, whoa, this like seems so unique. Like this seems unlike any film I had seen before. Its premise, right? The overall premise and kind of, I was just like, what? And it was just like, okay, wait a minute. Cusack, who's somebody I knew, from way back when he was a teen actor, right? I'd known him as an actor my whole life. And I'm like, wait, he's like this, like kind of, this puppeteer, this kind of like down and out puppeteer. And he's working on like some weird 7.5 floor that's like a 4.5 foot tall room. Like, you know what I mean? I'm like, wait a minute, they're going inside of John Malkovich? What? Like, I was mind blown,
Yeah, this kind of meta aspect to it.
Yeah, so you kind of saw it backwards in the sense that you went into it and you're like, okay, I know what to expect here. Okay, it's like wackiness is definitely going to ensue. It's going to be like this big meta experience. Kaufman's written it. But how did you, so do you remember what you felt about the film when you first saw it?
Yeah, I mean, I have another friend, not the friend who showed me this, but I have another friend who's really like.
No way. You have another?
Yeah, I've got more than one.
Okay, you have another friend. All right, cool.
So
I just want to make sure.
One, if we can believe it, there's a second friend. Breaking news.
I'm just kidding. Yeah.
He really loves like Kaufman's work. And very much when he was in like film school would like kind of emulate him and write like him and
yeah.
This kind of, again, I described it to you earlier as like, they all kind of center on these like sex deprived, lonely men kind of thing. And in looking at the funny of that and kind of, or the humor in that. And
but when you were a kid, when you were younger and you saw it, like, did you like just simply, did you like it? Were you interested in it? Did you think it was like kind of how did it strike you in that naive moment of not having seen it before?
I'm gonna use an odd word and I say it was surprisingly digestible.
Okay.
Like I think I expected it to be a little bit more
out
like
there, maybe
in the air and like in the clouds in a way. Like I thought it was gonna be more philosophical and which it is. I mean, it's undoubtedly there's like a lot of like, personal and kind of deep philosophical meaning to a lot of it. Some of it is
potentially, we'll discuss that when we get to themes. But it's like,
but I think that just on the basis of I enjoyed it, and I think that it definitely. I mean, I didn't watch it again for I think 2 years after that.
Yeah,
so I've seen it I think only 3 times, including this watch. And yeah, I think it's strange. I think I've almost had a slightly different reaction every time I've watched it, but they've always been like positive. I've never felt bored.
So what did you think?
So
now you've seen it recently. It's fresh in your mind, and you're watching it, with a little more of an analytical bent, obviously, because we're discussing it. What were kind of your initial like big reactions to it this time?
I think it's. I mean, you actually mentioned this, but I had similar feelings about the fact that it's visually very stripped down.
Yeah, which I was surprised about. That hit me first.
And it's like comparing that to, again, Spike Jonze's work as a music video producer. And again, you think of like the skateboard video as a genre, and it's very like super fisheye, lots of handheld and cool, like crazy angles and things like that.
More avant-garde.
Yeah, and this is very, there's not really like, I'm not trying to insult or demean the movie in any way, but there's not really much going on visually for like 95% of this movie.
Yeah, I would agree, and I was really surprised by it. And look, it could very. I mean, obviously these are choices that the director made. It's so I have to assume these are on purpose, of course, and so you have to think, well, this is meant to kind of mirror or illustrate, emphasize the lives of these characters, right? But it's just this drabness, this beigeness, this flatness. Permeates so much of the film.
It works for the subject. Like I think that it really it works for Cusack's character and
Yeah.
this kind of bizarre. It almost grounds it in a weird way. Like I feel like you could shoot this in sort of like a Wes Anderson style, which would be, you get to the 7.5 floor and it's like quirky
So cartoon,
and
almost the
kind
cartoon.
of zany, yeah. And whereas this almost grounds it and kind of puts you again in Cusack's shoes, who is, while he's not a normal guy in this, he's kind of odd. He is the most normal in the movie, and so like his reaction to the fact that there's low ceilings and that these people are like, oh, I have a speech impediment, Tibes, you're very kind to me, and it's like he's always just sitting there, and which I think is a great on his part. I think he does a really good job with the role, but also really again pairing that with the visuals that kind of ground it. And
So
make
that's
it
interesting.
more recognizable as like, okay, this
So it's
is
almost
sort of out of whack.
Yeah. So it's almost like that's an interesting interpretation, that it's almost okay visually. It's almost mundane, and I would say that a lot. It's very utilitarian. It's very it's not stylistically shot at all, with the exception of the chase scene in the end and near the climax through Malkovich's subconscious, where we have some interesting unique shooting going on there. But yeah, I mean, like by and large, it's, even when we're inside Malkovich's mind, it's, the way they treat that is just a very simple POV shot, a little bit of sound design, but it's really, it's very, very simply done. I think, maybe one of the more striking scenes is when Malkovich is talking to all these other different versions of himself. If I'm not mistaken, I think he goes like inside his own mind,
goes inside
right?
his own mind. It's kind of like a paradox, I guess.
And he's in a restaurant. Yeah, and he's in a restaurant, and this is
It's
kind
actually
of
the Queen Mary in California. This is the observation deck.
That's probably at Long Beach then.
Yeah.
And he's and it's actually a pretty good CGI effect for that era. Actually pulled off quite well.
It was a big combo. It was a lot of it. Some of it was CG, and some of it was just the extras
Masks.
wearing masks.
Yep. Yeah.
So it was a pretty ingenious way of doing it.
Yeah. And they pull that off very well, and I think that was really interestingly stylistically done. But yeah, I mean, and maybe you're right. I was just going to say, not maybe you're right. I mean, it's an interesting interpretation, that it keeps the film so grounded, and it makes the film seem so matter of fact visually when the story is so outrageous. And I think that's kind of one of my biggest takeaways, was just how I felt like the writing, I don't want to say overwhelms, but it almost feels like television, in the sense that the writer is the primary major creative force behind a project. And usually, of course, the director is the major, primary creative force in a film. And it almost feels like here we have Kaufman's voice, that the writing and his premise so I don't want to say overwhelming, because that overwhelming has a negative connotation, but its
Kind of
influence is so
overshadowing, I guess? I
substantial.
don't know.
Well, I think it's just this Kaufman's voice is so substantial in his script that it just kind of, I don't get a sense as much of who Spike Jonze is as a director. The things that the personality he shows in his video work before this, and even work that he's done since. Now, I know this is Jonze's first film, his first feature, and, it's almost like I would have expected something similar to, let's say, maybe like a PTA, where his first couple films, he's really working hard to prove himself, and you've got long oneers and, a lot of like dynamic camera movement and
zooms while dollying and all
that. All this kind of, very like lyrical camera and a lot of movement going and
Super
everything
kinetic,
in it.
yeah.
And you almost feel like Jonze would have come from, I was almost surprised that he didn't come to that here. Now, I'm not suggesting he should have, and maybe it speaks to a confidence that he had that the script is there, it's solid, I'm telling this story, and I don't need all that fancy stuff, because that's kind of where PTA came later, right? When PTA matured as a filmmaker, he's like,
he's very like subdued.
Yeah, I don't need to do all these wacky things to prove myself.
Which I actually, just briefly on PTA, I prefer his more recent work because of that like kind of minimalist, very confident in like simple setups. I think
and so I'm not knocking Jonze at all,
No,
for his work here. I was just
think
surprised.
it really, I think another thing about it is that Jones' direction works with the subject matter, because you think about it, like there's not really any like magic in them. Of course, there's a portal to John Malkovich's mind, but it's played so straight and like nobody even questions it.
Yeah.
And you could have a version of the script where they land on the top of the Empire State Building when they come out of his mind or something. But no, it's the New Jersey Turnpike. Like it's like
yeah.
So I think that everything is, and I think it's actually quite ingenious in the way it's written, because you take this really, really fanciful, crazy, like insane idea and this really bizarre premise, but you make everything, like you said, mundane. Yeah, you're throwing it on the New Jersey Turnpike. It's behind a filing cabinet. It's like, all these things that are like, he's a puppeteer. It's like, you got all these things that just, everything else is so stripped down and mundane that you almost are like, okay, yeah, this thing has to be real, because
or like that they have like a monkey lives in the house, and that
like
it's
birds,
like and the monkey is going through therapy, or I mean, just the fact that it's a 7.5 floor and it's like half the size, half the the ceiling is like half as low as a regular ceiling, so everybody has to
knows
stoop
why.
and all of these little like surreal. I mean, I would say they're like surreal twists, And I think Kaufman has obviously shown that that's, in I've not seen every single one of his films, but I've seen many, and I feel like, he has a surreal touch to everything he does. There's a surreal flavor, which I enjoy. I mean, because it's especially in today's day and age with films, I think we've said this about other films. I'd be surprised if this film could get made and distributed worldwide. Major theatrical release of a film like this in today's day and age. Sadly,
Well, apparently New Line was originally going to, like, that it was pitched to New Line, and then Robert Shea said, "Why the fuck can't it be Being Tom Cruise?" Was his response.
Right. Why can't it be Tom Cruise? Yeah. I could see that, and it's my understanding, and I might have misheard this or misunderstood it, but it was my understanding that Kaufman wrote it specifically with Malkovich in it, and that they really stuck to their guns, that they felt it was vital for Malkovich to be the actor, the celebrity that they were going into the mind of, and that it wouldn't just work if you switched it out to another person. And I do have to say, I mean, I think that it's perfect. I'm like, now obviously I'm looking backwards at a film that's art, but it's like, it would have been a different film had anybody else been used. And I think Malkovich has just this perfect, I don't know, you know what I mean? He's like he has this perfect level, especially back then, of like just,
it's like
actor,
John Malkovich, like
art. I don't even know,
is,
like, how do you define? I know it's like John Malkovich is just John Malkovich. It's like and I don't even know. I actually need to look this up, because I doubt it had come out. Had it come out yet? His what was that movie where he played that Russian gambler guy, poker dude? Do you remember, when was that?
What is that called?
It's called Rounders. Okay, yes. So Rounders came out a year before this film. Now, this is where it's like, so you've got Malkovich, right? I just want to go off on a tangent here for a little bit. You've got, like, he's in Dangerous Liaisons, right? He's in, what other films was he in?
The Line of Fire.
Like, he's this real actor, right? Like, he's an actor. And then he's in, like, Con Air, which
Classic
is great.
Nicolas Cage,
and then he's in Rounders. And do you remember Rounders? Have you seen it?
I've not seen it. I know it, though.
Okay. So he plays this character named Teddy KGB. So, which he's Russian, okay? He's supposed to be this Russian, like, card shark gambler guy, right? Okay. Poker master, okay? And he's kind of set up as the, for lack of a better term, like the villain, right? And he has this Russian accent. After the show, you need to go look it up, but it is one of the most ridiculously, like, I mean, I think it's great. I think it's wonderful, but it's hysterical. I mean, it's so over the top. It's so ridiculous. So to me, like, him coming off that and being in this film is just perfect. It's just
it's really funny,
perfect
yeah.
because it's not like he's clearly a great actor, but he's also in his own way kind of goofy and kind of, you know what I mean? Like his roles have been kind of colorful. And anyway, I sorry to go off on a tangent here, but
No,
I
that's
thought
okay. Yeah,
I thought it was hysterical that it
Yeah.
was John Malkovich.
Well, apparently the first like drafts had nothing to do with the idea too, of like going into anyone's mind,
Right.
and that it was just supposed to be written about a guy who falls in love with someone other than his wife, and then
Oh, interesting.
that like in the first few scripts there was like the floor 7.5 came in and things like that, and then it was passed a bunch, like passed
Just
around
gets-
Hollywood, turned down,
Yeah.
and then Kaufman sent it to Coppola, who then passed it on to Spike Jonze because he was dating Sofia Coppola at the time,
Right. Yep.
and that was 1994, I think. So it was
So
passed
they've
around
been
for a while, and,
Yeah.
because then they eventually got married and then divorced. But and another fun fact is that it started shooting on my birthday. So there you go.
Ah.
My very first birthday. So
Well, there you go.
Maybe
Your
I am
very
John
first
Malkovich.
birthday.
as
Right,
they say
well-
in the movie, you know, when the person's born, you go in. That's what happens.
You get absorbed. So maybe
I
you
was
have
absorbed
some
by Spike Jonze or something.
Yeah. I mean, you know, so okay, so obviously John Malkovich, his name's in the title, but we've got some other interesting performances here. I mean, John Cusack, who again I'd kind of hinted at, you know, he'd been around for me since I was a kid, and I kind of grew up watching, you know, so many of his roles, you know, like Say Anything, the Cameron Crowe flick. I thought he was actually fantastic. Not actually, I mean, it's no actually to it. He was flat out fantastic in The Grifters, which was a 1990 film. I mean, he just been around, right? He's been in a million films. I can't even, you know, Better Off Dead, which was a flick from my childhood.
Yeah.
One Crazy Summer, which is another flick from my childhood that I loved. I don't know, not many people have seen this, but Tapeheads was a film that I liked when I was a kid. So he'd just been around, you know,
Yeah.
and done so many films. And so by the time he had come to this, you know, it was a fun thing for me to see him in such an interesting role. But I think I think his performance is pretty interesting in the film. And
Yeah,
and
yeah,
you're
definitely.
right. I mean, it's very grounded. He plays it very straight. There's all these surrealistic touches, but you know, he plays it maybe well. I mean, everybody plays it pretty straight, I think, except for Orson Bean. But yeah, I feel like his performance is quite good in the film. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I like Cusack. I again, it's almost like the perfect, like, inoffensive casting for the movie in a way, right? Like that he's not like it kind of perfectly is in sync with John Malkovich, because you're kind of like, oh yeah, okay, John Cusack, yeah. Like, it's not like he didn't get like a DiCaprio or like Tom Hanks or someone who's kind of, you know, known for.
This would be interesting, though. I'd like to imagine like Leonardo DiCaprio in this film. I feel like if Leo were in this film, there'd be a lot more crying.
Yes, and screaming, yeah.
And screaming,
That
crying
moment
and
when
screaming.
he locks his wife in the cage would be very dramatic.
And don't get
But
me
no,
wrong,
but that's what I mean.
I
think
love
that's, like,
Leo. Yeah.
That's why I kind of think that Cusack is perfect for this, because it's like, even when he seems angry and is like yelling and things, like, you still almost get this idea that he's going to say sorry after every single line. And
Well,
it
he's
really
like,
works
yeah.
for his character.
Yeah, no, I think it really does. And I mean, he kind of almost, it's like, sure, he's filing in a beige, you know, cubicle farm office building, because that's like, I feel like that's exactly where he'd be, you know. And I think those were a lot of the roles that he played in those movies that I had mentioned, where he, you know, even though these are kind of teen comedies, fun films, he was always kind of like, I don't want to say like the straight man, but, you know, to some extent, yeah. Or he was kind of this like slightly outsider, slightly kind of disaffected, slightly, you know, and I think it's really unique in that it's like, he's like a leading man, but he's like not a leading man, you know? And I think it just works perfectly for this film. I think what they do with Cameron Diaz is really interesting too, you know, because we see her here, and like everything else that we've almost discussed in the film, except for the script, it's like so underplayed. Like they make her so plain, like so purposely, clearly plain. You know, she had
Like
been in The
against
Mask.
type,
Yeah, kind of against type, right? It's like they hire an actress who is known for her beauty, and you know, she was in The Mask, and she was in oh boy, now I'm like blinking. What else? She'd been in a couple films, but I think The Mask, and then There's Something About Mary were two big films right before this.
Yeah.
And so clearly she had like established her comedy chops with There's Something About Mary. Well, and The Mask too, frankly. But yeah, here she's like got this crazy like wig on, and she's like really just under made up, wears like sweatpants and stuff, you know. And her best friend is a little monkey. But yeah, that I feel like that was an interesting choice to see. And I think at the time, especially, people were surprised by that. You know, it's like, well, why in the world did you hire Cameron Diaz then if you were going to do this?
And it's like you almost don't even know it's her. Like it's very interesting. She does a good job. Like she does genuinely a very good job at you know, again, not. She clearly intentionally does not play the type and put a lot of work into not being Cameron Diaz.
Obviously
that's acting, but in a way that I think it's very fat. Like it almost takes you a second to go like, oh, that's Cameron Diaz. Like you don't really realize who it is at first.
Yeah, for sure. And I think and Catherine Keener, who, you know, I don't know that I was too aware of her when the film originally came out. But I think, like, to me, her character is one of the more interesting. And, you know, and it's weird because I feel like her character kind of actually has the most arc. And not that I think a character has to have an arc, you know, I mean, because clearly, you know, Cusack doesn't change, right? If we follow him through the film, he doesn't change.
Kind of beginning and end, same
thing. He doesn't learn, he doesn't change, and he's literally chosen at the end to be absorbed inside of this child's brain, only to kind of pine away and look at his wife have a relationship with somebody else without him, right? He's literally chosen that instead of leading his own life. And so I don't get a sense that he's really learned or grown or done anything. Cameron Diaz, I feel like kind of also in a certain sense has kind of stayed the same. Or not changed very much, but Catherine Keener, it's like she starts off the film and she's so icy and cold and kind of, or I don't know if icy and cold is the right, but she's just like sort of, you don't get a lot of like empathy emanating or warmth coming from her character. She's sort of
almost only interested in her own, like very, not self-preservation, but she's like
selfish.
Is only,
and
but not
she's
in like
kinda,
a malicious way. She just doesn't really care about anything going on.
It's just a matter of fact,
Yeah.
right? And she's like, "How can we profit off this? We're gonna like sell tickets to John Malkovich's Mind. You know, we're gonna profit off of it." Or it's like, "Hey, you know, don't you know?" It's just really like, you know, very abruptly kind of like, "Well, what can you do for me?" Or I'm not into, you know. It's just kind of. And by the end, it's like you see her in this real, seemingly like loving, warm relationship with Cameron Diaz's character. They have a child, you know. I mean, so it honestly, and I was surprised by that. I had forgotten about that actually until I had watched it now. But you know, I was just kind of surprised. But I think but her performance I think is fantastic. So like across, and we already talked about Orson Bean, who is like hysterical, I think.
Oh God, he's great. Yeah, he's fantastic.
I mean, his performance is it feels like it's almost kind of like tongue in cheek. Like it's like, you know, everybody else is playing this so straight, but he comes on, and especially when we first meet him in the office for the interview, he's so tongue in cheek, and it's kind of like, hey,
Monty Python sketch or something.
Yeah, it's like wink, wink, nudge, nudge, you know.
Yeah, or when they're trying to like say, "Oh, we'll kill your wife," and then he hangs up, and then he's like, "Oh, he called our bluff." It's like this
yeah. I mean, it's almost like he's in a different movie than the other actors, but it works. You know, it still works. I just love it. So, you know, but again, I just, you know, I watched the film and I enjoyed it. but I'm kind of like scratching my head a little bit at the end, I have to say, in the sense that, now this is not a bad thing. I think this is a good thing in the sense that I'm kind of like, okay, what in the world did all this mean? Not that I have to have a film, be about anything explicitly at all. I don't. But I'm always kind of like curious. Like, I wonder, well, what's the director saying? What is the writer saying? Kind of, how do I feel about this? And this was a film that I'm kind of like, I really, at least yet, maybe I'll get there, in as we discuss it here, but I don't have this like great articulation, like this really articulate explanation of what I kind of think or feel about what the movie might be trying to say. What are your thoughts on that? Because it touches on so many things. It touches on celebrity. It touches on, identity.
This idea of like, well, Cusack says in the movie, like this idea of being in someone else's skin, and it's like he's this guy who can never say the right thing,
right?
Like in that, literally to a point that every single thing that he says, I want to say for the first like 70% of the movie, it results in something
negative consequence.
Like, legitimately every line,
like everybody responds to him except, now interestingly that you say it, except for Orson Bean.
Yeah, but even Orson Bean, like when you think about how whenever Orson Bean's like comes up to him and is like, "Oh, don't you talk to her that way?" And if I was 20 years younger, I'd knock your ears off.
Yeah.
And so there's this but exactly that there's Orson Bean is very much, I want to say also the only actor in the movie that's like purposefully playing comedy too, like is playing for comedic kind of effect. But yeah, and then
Mary Kay Place. Mary Kay Place is playing. Yeah, they're kind of a duo together. But
they've got a little bit of and then suddenly you've got this character that's again that never says anything right, that is completely, and then he is transported into the mind of for 15 minutes of the like. A good actor, a great actor. I like John Malkovich a lot.
Yeah.
But like also just kind of like the most like banal choice of like.
Now here's what I would have done. Here's what I would have done. What I would have done. Okay, I'm gonna riff on an idea for just a second. Okay, we'll have maybe we can have a new segment in our podcast where it's like, how would I have done this differently?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not that I'm like second guessing Spike Jonze and Charlie Kaufman, but just let's play a thought experiment. So how cool would have this been if we have this guy, we have Cusack, he's a puppeteer, which is it's 100%, it's a type of acting, it's a performance art, okay? So very close, honestly, to what Malkovich does, and I think, we explored this in the film a little bit, right? It's kind of meta, and these are actors in a performance already, talking about performance and acting. But when he goes into Malkovich for the first time, he pops in during a take of Malkovich on set for the film Rounders, where he's playing Teddy KGB, and we can hear the literal like lines from the movie, like where he's in a scene that we recognize from the movie having just come out, and so Cusack gets to like spend the 15 minutes on set of this major motion picture with Matt Damon sitting right across from him, and they're at the card table and they're playing poker and they're shooting a scene. That's how I would have done it different.
Yeah. And then there's even a third. There's another layer of like meta. He's playing. Even Malkovich is playing someone else. Yeah.
I mean,
that should be. I think we should add that segment to.
You like that? Yeah. It's like how can we play armchair director? And second guess people's filmmaking, which is not actually my intention at all. I just had this idea, but sometimes it's like, because you wonder, it's like I don't know how Kaufman writes. And I know just in my own writing, a lot of times, like some things are conscientious, like some things are very conscientious where it's like, okay, I'm shooting for some kind of like way to express an idea or a theme. And so, you're reaching for some kind of symbology. And a lot of times though, and I think this is maybe when the writing's better, all of that stuff is kind of subconscious, and it's not a conscientious like goal to create or utilize symbology, but rather it's just kind of like flowing forth from me, right? And so I don't know how Kaufman writes, and I don't know if his symbology or if his stories are very conscientious and they're methodical, and he, or if he kind of writes from his subconscious more. I don't know. Yeah. But maybe, an argument for the latter would be that I don't feel like this film and what it's saying is really easy to categorize. I think if you had 10 people watch it, you'd probably have 10 different interpretations of what the film is about, Yeah, and I really like that about this film. I really like this about a film. And I think we've talked before about, especially in the like biopic genre, where recently we've just had films that so overly simplify, the people's lives or the characters and the stories, and the symbology or the themes are so on the nose, and you feel like you're being hit over the head as an audience member, being told what to think about what's on screen. And so, at least for me, I feel like that's not the case even remotely with Hoffman's films and with this film as well, which I love. I wish there was more of that.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, kind of just like he throws up ideas without worrying to handhold the audience through what his philosophy is, which is refreshing, because again, like you said, a lot of times a movie like I think of some movies that have come out recently that are very similar in the sense that they're like kind of this like high concept idea, and they've got this philosophy to them, and yet they just are so on the nose in terms of like what like as much as we don't like to
it's manipulative
talk negatively about other movies, but the movie Don't Look Up that just came out last year,
I saw that,
which had
Leo,
a lot of people really liked, but I found it was kind of, again, in the opposite vein of this movie, where it's like, again, you've got this high concept, you've got this idea that like an asteroid's coming to destroy Earth, and like how people respond, and yet it was
But the concept is so underutilized. It's another, I think it's another, I know you're going in a different direction. You're using it as an example of kind of a preachiness or an on-the-noseness. It's also an example, since being John Malkovich is also, I think you could argue in a sense, I don't know if I'd say it's high concept, but there is a high concept there, right? But the film isn't executed exactly like maybe it is. I don't know. I'd have to think about that. But yeah,
I'd say the subject matter of John Malkovich is high concept, but the way in which it's like the workmanship behind it is not high concept.
One of the things that I thought about, and as I just think this through with you, and this is like 99. Now in 99, obviously, like, celebrity has been a major, people have lived through the lives to some extent of celebrities for decades and decades and decades, right? I mean, and certainly in 99, there was already a substantial celebrity culture in this country and in Canada, where you're at, and other countries. But what's interesting is that 99 is kind of the beginning of the internet being available to a wider and wider audience, or wider and wider group of users. And, because I'm trying to think, I think 94 would have been when I first really used the internet. And by 99, I think it was quite prevalent, or, much more so. And it's interesting where we've gone now with virtual realities, or virtual images, or avatars of ourselves online, right? And that could be something as simple as like you have a username that's not you on Twitter, or you actually have like an actual avatar in a video game, or what is Facebook now? What do they call themselves? Meta? Is that what
Meta,
Facebook?
Yeah.
And it's trying to like create this entirely like synthesized, symbolic virtual world where avatars of people will interact with. And I think it's interesting, it's one of the things that I really thought of here, and it's kind of a superficial thing, but this idea of like, living through someone else, right? And obviously Cusack's character does this in this film, and very consciously goes into this person's life, learns to kind of manipulate and control them, and then uses this other person's life to achieve their goals and dreams of, in this case, of being a successful puppeteer. And, utilizing the fame that Malkovich already had to do so. It's just very interesting to me how the world has kind of moved on 20 years plus after this film, and how so many people live through, either avatars they've created for themselves in a virtual existence online, or live through the celebrity of other people. And I just think that's intriguing. Anyway, it was just one of the things that I thought about.
Like you said, like celebritydom and fandom these days is such a different place than it was, even 10 years ago, where it's like people have these parasocial relationships with celebrities that they believe are their friends because they can follow them on Twitter.
They can tweet, they can tweet,
they see their daily life on Instagram, and it's like it almost goes along with the whole idea of, and we're getting not off topic, but very broad
this is
here,
right on topic.
But
this is right
the
on.
idea that like talk shows all kind of are dwindling, and like Conan O'Brien just ended his because he was like, I'm gonna do something a little bit more contemporary, and because what was the talk show originally? It was this half-hour program to get to know a celebrity because you had no other way of doing that.
Well, and they would always, it was promotion. Right? It was an advertisement.
It was an ad.
It was an ad.
But also, it was like the only place that you could see a celebrity kind of just like kick back and have a conversation with someone. It wasn't that, wasn't a direct, necessarily a direct interview about a specific project or something like that.
Right.
And now with social media, where I can go on Twitter, God forbid, or I can go on Instagram or anything, and I can see, again, I can like literally go and look at Kim Kardashian's Instagram story and see what she's been up to today. And I can go and I can
how
see,
exciting.
I can go see what John Cusack's thoughts on, the most recent election are, right from his own mouth, right? It's
yeah.
So there's this really interesting, link between this idea that, and it's almost, perhaps it's like this where it's like, it's funny how overt people are. The guy that's like, that comes in and he's like, oh, Malkovich was my second choice, and goes in and is super excited, and everyone's like thrilled when they come out of on the New Jersey Turnpike. And I feel like, again, I was 1 year old when this movie came out, but
which blows my mind, by the way. Totally blows my mind. I was graduated college.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. But it's funny how, and I assume, because it was like this when I was growing up, even that kind of overt, with exceptions, there was obviously like Beatlemania, and there was like people would like pass out at Elvis and Michael Jackson concerts, things like that. But in terms of like this celebrity worship that like permeates every single like day-to-day life in every aspect, was kind of something that was like exaggerated in this movie. Whereas nowadays, like if you were to reshoot this movie, you would almost think that those people that like are so, almost like have filled with contempt about themselves, that they just want to go and live in the eyes of a celebrity, that would almost be too realistic to be like high concept fantasy in this day and age. Like that, like think about the idea of going into John Malkovich's head and seeing what he sees through a POV. Like we kind of already get to do that every day now.
That's very interesting. So, you're right. And it's almost like, we do. It's almost like the uniqueness of that, right? Of that experience has been reduced, because you're right. It's like I can go on Twitter and, specifically John Cusack is there expressing his personal opinions like every 5 minutes. And you're just like, okay, well, I'm practically like, like I'm in his mind. I mean, obviously you're not, but yeah, I mean, the idea of that, I think, there are so many interesting like tangents or like interesting ideas that are almost kind of dangled in front of us, but then kind of not done a lot with, really, that there's a part of me that thinks that there's more potential than there is actual payoff in this film, but I don't know how I feel about that. There's part of me that's like, well, hey, that's okay. It's like, it's enough to kind of like to fill up the film with some density and let you kind of mull it over and think about it and have more to discuss. You don't have to tie everything up in a nice little bow that you introduce into a film, right? And so I guess maybe I'm okay with that. But just one of the things that I'm thinking of kind of specifically that I actually thought on this rewatch, because I hadn't seen it in so long, was going to be more of a part of the film was, so Lottie, the character that Cameron Diaz plays, when she is first, when Cusack's character, Craig, introduces her to the portal, and they're able to go through, she goes through that and is in Malkovich's mind. Her interpretation of that is kind of like an awakening of a transgender identity, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's explicitly said, like her character explicitly says that. It's like, I'm going to paraphrase, I can't remember exactly, but it's like, oh my gosh, I realized when I was in Malkovich that I like meant to be a man, I think is roughly how that goes. But then we don't really see too much more of this. I mean, there is this plot idea about how Catherine Keener's character is, has a sexual relationship with Cameron Diaz when she's inside the body of Malkovich.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's definitely, we continue that on to the point where Cameron Diaz is in a relationship with Catherine Keener at the end of the film. But that's just one kind of interesting thing to me, that it's like, it seemed so poignant, and maybe that's because now this is such a topic in today's world, but and probably 20 plus years ago I would have had less exposure to transgender identity issues and things, but it just stuck out to me. I was like, whoa. And then we don't go anywhere really with that, I don't think, by the end of the film. Just kind of one example that stood out to me. But there's a lot of little things, I think, like that in the film. And I guess that's
like an infusing of like identity in all kind of forms. In a
way of, and I guess that's a good way to see, is that identity is a huge part of this. And it's interesting too. And I don't know that, the film is clearly not moralizing, which I like. And I don't think Kaufman really ever delves into moralization. He just kind of presents things and you can kind of decide for yourself. But it is a little bit interesting that, it feels so punitive for Cusack's character, for Craig, at the end of the film. He's in this prison where he's just reduced to basically pining over a lost relationship and a person he can't have. Inside the mind of, where it's basically he's imprisoned inside the mind of a child. Yeah. And it almost feels punitive for him trying to find success and expression through the fame and body of another person, which is interesting, So yeah, there's a lot of different things going on in this film, and I still have not, I don't know if I would ever get myself to a point where I would be able to dissect it and articulate it perfectly, but I think that's Kaufman, right?
No, exactly. That's like you look at his other movies again, and you see, again, very similar themes, and yet they're tough to predict, and they're tough to.
And they're in their detail, in the execution. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Which is, and I found out that he wrote a book, and I don't know if you've heard of it. I think it's called Ant-Kind. That Kaufman wrote a book, I think, a couple of years ago. Yeah.
Read it.
So I'd be curious I think I'm going to pick that up and check it out. And I've also kind of made a little bit of homework for myself to read his scripts, because I'd be curious to see how, I'm always curious to see how scripts are translated by directors into the, the final film that we get to see. But I think especially with Kaufman, because again, I just feel like his stamp is so strong in this film that it almost feels kind of, again, I don't want to say overwhelming, because that feels negative, but it's just so significant. But yeah, well, hey, I guess that's where we'll probably wrap up this
Yeah.
episode. It's kind of one of those where it's like you don't have this beautiful, perfect, articulate analysis of the themes of the film, but again, that's kind of what I enjoy about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I thank you as always, Cullen.
Yeah, thank
Me
you.
is
This was
Cullen.
fun.
Me is Cullen. Me is
Cullen.
Clark.
Me
Maybe I'll
is
edit
fine.
that. People have no idea what we're talking about, but maybe
Yeah,
I'll
that'll be
maybe I'll edit in like a snippet
The tail,
as
yeah.
like a postscript or something after our sign off. But yeah, but hey, thanks again, Colin, for hanging with me and discussing the film. It's
This
as
is
always,
fun.
it's a blast, and everybody out there listening, thanks for hanging there with us. I hope that you enjoyed the episode, and we will see you next time. Take care, everybody.
Bye-bye. Okay.
All right, man. Ready when you are.
Yep. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Soldiers of Cinema podcast, episode 60. I am
Woohoo.
your host, as always, with my co-host, Cullen, is me. I'm going to start that. Yeah. Oh, geez.
No, I
It's been a
love
while.
that.